To Trusted Voices here, Ameren. Today we'll be talking about choosing insurance. Felix McGowan, the director of Ameren Critical Infrastructure. We're here to help tribes in other capacities other than insurance, grant writing, planning, all kinds of different things. We come with years and years of experience in that case, and part of one of our expertise in this taken over this Trusted Voices on for our behalf has had years of doing this kind of thing. So I want to thank her from myself. Today, again, like I say, we're talking about picking insurance. I mean, it's kind of a introduce Shannon Lastona, and welcome her. She is the director of our underwriting facility, or underwriting department, and we just like to have a conversation today. We're gonna try something a little different, just kind of a question and answer, kind of like you'd see at a conference, and just kind of go through some things that we see on our side, things we like to get from our side, things that we think are important for you as the acquirers of insurance. What are important things to you that you need to think about too on your side. So with that, I'd like to introduce Shannon. Shannon, if you'd like to kind of introduce yourself real quick, and then we can get going.
All right. Thank you for that, Felix. Like you mentioned, I'm Shannon Lastillon. I'm the underwriting manager here for the company. I'm originally from the Pueblo of Zuni here in New Mexico. So we're about 150 miles west of our home office location in Santa Ana. So welcome, everybody. Good morning to those on the West Coast and in the Mountain Time Zone, and then good afternoon to those that are on a Central and East Coast folks. So been with the company for 22 years, and part of that I was in the claims team as well. So it's been great to be a part of Ameren and for seeing where we've come to now.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I think Shannon and I've been around Ameren for quite a while. I've been around it as an outside person for 20 plus years and been part of the organization for the last 4, which is kind of a cool thing to be. Ameren's the only tribally owned insurance company in the world. It's a distinction that we have from any of our other competitors or anybody else out there. We are truly a tribally owned organization, working to do what we can to put the tribe's interests first in everything that we do. So, I kind of want to start this off to frame it. Insurance is something we all have, right, in our private lives and our business lives, everything. And we always wonder why we pay the insurance, right? Insurance is something that if you don't use it, you just see the payment going out every month. Really, insurance is there for us to be there on your worst day, right? Because insurance kicks in when you have a loss of some kind. And so when you're preparing for that day, you hope it never happens, but it can. And so, we kind of want to talk about the things that we like to see on our side, and then kind of help, the thought process, and maybe try and ease the pain of paying insurance on a monthly basis. But Shannon, from your guys' office, what do you see are the most important pieces that tribes or tribal businesses, tribal housing need to provide for us to provide the best possible quote we can for them?
Okay. Well, of course, every tribe is unique within what their operations are. So from our perspective, we try to tailor coverages effectively based on the needs. And depending on what the insurance need is, requesting that information, such as if you're looking for property coverages, property schedules with buildings, their values, and then of course, if you have any business personal property that you own or manage, definitely be sure to provide that information. So, even with operational details, are you a tribal operation, a housing entity? Do you have some gaming involved within your entity? So as far as us providing the best insurance option, we always say information is key for us and evaluating that information. And, as far as if you're not currently with Ameren, sharing your existing insurance policy also helps as well. Providing that for us, that way we can identify if there's any gaps or overlaps in coverages, if there's possibly a coverage that you're already paying for that you may not need, analyzing those coverages that you currently have. And of course, our goal is to help you stay properly insured. And then just if you need some solutions, flexibility wise, that reflect your priorities and exposures and assets that you have, definitely those are other pieces that we look at as well, just to make sure that we are providing those options for you for the coverage.
Yeah. Is there such a thing as too little or too much information that you provide?
There is actually. And by having too much information, I would say that is nonsense. The underwriters, we definitely love data and we love information. So I think from providing the adequate information that you have and as much possible that you're able to provide, all of those fine details we look at to see, okay, are there any areas that we can help save some money? Are there any coverages that we see you didn't have, but you should have? And all of that is just making sure we're adequately providing that insurance protection for you. Now, the too little piece of it is, yes, there is such a thing as us receiving too little information. With that, if we don't get as much details, you could pose the risk of being underinsured, not adequately charged for the premium. So, if we're not getting that detailed information on the underwriting coverage side of things, it could affect the tribe if we're not getting all the details that are needed to properly evaluate your information. So we love information. There's no such thing as too much, unless, Felix, you're asking us for insurance coverage and you're providing us, hey, these are the dogs I used to own and the different breeds. Technically that would be considered too much information because love your dogs, Felix. I've learned a lot about them from the information you provided to us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unless you're insuring your dogs as a coverage. So, yeah. Well, I guess with that, so when you talk about, evaluating kind of the risk, right, or what coverage is needed, losses, things like that. Is there like a year, so 2 years of information in the past, 1 year, 3 years? Is there like a kind of a yearly too much information? 1 year is enough, 2 years is great, 3 years is way too much, kind of a thing. Is that part of the process too?
Well, I think we need to break it down by are you a new customer or an existing customer? So definitely being a new customer to Ameren, we don't have any information, right? So it's like we're starting this process all over again. Got to get all this information to Ameren so that we can properly evaluate the exposures that a tribe has. Now, on an annual basis, if they're already with us, you have the main meat and potatoes of the information that we need. And typically on an annual basis, we pretty much ask for any updates. So if you maybe did a housing project that had 50 units, hey, did you be sure to add those 50 units onto your policy? If we've got a tribe that maybe created a force account crew that's doing construction throughout the tribal community, did you be sure to update those employees for your workers' comp? So on an annual basis, what we typically ask for is just for any updates in your exposures, if you have any updates within your operational teams, and then of course, any new things that you have entered to within that year to make sure that you have included them on your insurance. So as much as too little information, I think from the new perspective of coming on board as a new customer, we definitely like the more the better. And then on the renewal perspective, it's mostly providing us with updates. Any updates that a tribe has entertained throughout the year, or even a housing entity taking on new projects, new buildings. So I think from your question, from a too little or too much information, definitely the first start of the process of getting insurance with us may seem like, geez, they're asking for everything. But rest assured, once we have you on the books and we're starting to get your policies renewed, we won't ask for as much of information. It'll be more of like just provide us some updates of what's changed.
Right. Right. Does the building materials matter? I mean, current condition is one thing, right? But then if you're building new units, like you alluded to, is it important to provide, like if you build a new tribal community or a new administrative office, is the building materials part of the evaluation too?
Yes, well, it depends on what phase of construction it's in. So if you're just building the building from the ground up, it's just to start a new construction, you'll definitely want to be sure that you've included some sort of value for those building materials. So under a builder's risk type of coverage, will cover the property that's being built in the course of construction, but you also want to be sure that the value of your building materials are included with that. Now, when the structure is completely done and you've put it on your policy, you want to make sure that you've got adequate value for that building to replace the building in the event something happens. So, and that's from the ground up. I mean, we know with inflation costs going up and down, that is some of a challenge, is to say, okay, what is the right price? But usually sometimes tribes will utilize their construction costs that they used to build that building. And then from there, it's just monitoring the current cost today. You know, what are the cost trends? Is there an influx in material costs, lack of contractors? All of those can play a part in replacing structures.
Right. And so I think you kind of alluded to a little bit, you know, the interesting thing is on the consumer side, right? The insured side. You know, we talk about controlling costs, right? And so, I know we've run into this before, but it's interesting to me how valuation of a facility and deductibles and how kind of all that plays into. So as a tribe is evaluating, the price per month or the yearly cost for the insurance, how does the deductible play into that, valuation?
I'm just going to repeat your question,
So I
Felix.
guess I got to reframe that.
Okay.
Yeah. So how does deductible play into taking insurance?
So you want to think about your deductibles as far as a threshold within a claim, or what can the tribe, housing entity, or even an individual homeowner, what threshold are they able to take on before they can tap claim monies to reimburse them? So as an example, just like auto insurance, right? The higher your deductible, the lower your premium. The lower your deductible, the higher the premium. And what we evaluate that on is if you've got a deductible of $1,000, those are geared towards, if you're expecting a lot of smaller claims, roof damages, for an example. A roof today, typical size home is anywhere $10,000 as an example, right? So if you have a $1,000 deductible, you pretty much know for sure that you are going to be responsible for $1,000 of each and every single claim. Whereas if you had a $25,000 deductible, for an example, you're pretty much betting on yourself, right? I'm going to maintain my properties, making sure that my roofs are in adequate condition so that I don't have to file those lower level, we call them burn layers, right? Your first burn layer is probably $1,000 to $5,000. And then the higher you get, you're pretty much betting on yourself that any claim that comes in, I can pretty much withstand my deductible, which could be $25,000, and anything above that $25,000, I'm going to tap my insurance for. So by betting on yourself and having an increased deductible, you're probably going to save on premium for sure. Having a higher deductible does save on your premium. And then it also helps eliminate those smaller types of claims from being filed. If you've got a good, do have some tribes that do have force account crews that any damages that occur, they kind of have a bucket of savings where, hey, if damages are within $5,000, we're not going to tap our insurance. We're going to tap this bucket of savings we have and maintain those homes and save our insurance for the more catastrophic type of events. I'm using my insurance if I had a large total fire loss. I know I'm going to get replaced for that. And then B, I'm also saving on my premiums. So the higher deductible does have, depending on each tribe, it varies. But what we see from a higher deductible standpoint is tribes do take that option to bet on themselves, making sure they're only using insurance for the larger catastrophic type of losses. And then, when it comes to the end of the year, when we're reviewing these accounts, it does reflect on loss runs that we do pull from each of our insureds. Now, the lower deductibles, yes, you're going to see a little bit of a higher premium just because, we're expecting that if you do have $1,000 deductible, we're going to expect, the smaller types of claims to come through and be filed for those cover losses. And that does affect premium in the end. If we come to the end of the year and we're evaluating policies, a lot of what we look at is, okay, it's what types of losses are being tapped. Are they weather related? Are they fire claims? And then how can we help with the preventable losses that are occurring? But ultimately, it's just like auto insurance, right? If you carry an auto policy, you have a lower deductible, your premium is a little bit more higher than if I were to carry a higher deductible. Your premium will be, you'll see the savings within the premiums.
Yeah. I've noticed we've had before the valuation, right? So if you're building a building, say a new administrative building, and your replacement cost is $2 million, but you insure it for less, right? So you say it's only values $1,000 to replace. And with this current economy we're in, it's, a $2 million facility you finish today could change to be $1.5 million in 6 months. Right? I mean, just because of the variation of stuff. So do you have any recommendations when a tribe is really looking to value a building or houses or whatever, and kind of the how if you have a $2 million home or facility that you value, that you try to insure for $1 million, what's the ramifications when, and hopefully you never come to this, but if something happened to the facility and you were a total loss?
Okay, so undervaluing properties definitely will have some implications in the event the building goes down. A lot of times, if we're not paying attention to the limits and values that are attached, and, I just want to keep the value as it is, and maybe we provided that value 4 years ago. So fast forward 4 years from now, construction costs are up 20-30%. And if we kept that same value from 4 years ago, not accounting for the inflation that's occurring, if something were to happen to that building and we tried to bite the bullet by saving on premium and providing a lower value, something happens to the building. Unfortunately, if that building is understated, the limit that is indicated on the policy would pretty much be what's covered as far as replacement of that structure. So we're always encouraging our tribes and housing entities to just make sure you're carrying that adequate value for those properties. From Ameren's standpoint, we definitely would never want to underinsure properties. We always want to make sure our insureds are going to be able to be replaced whole in the event something happens. So, and it's a partnership, right? Both ways. I mean, we're here, and then we've got several experts out there in the field in tribal communities that are building homes, and they know the costs. You ask them and it's right on the top of their head. That's great. So sharing that information with your insurance carrier is especially important, so that way you do make sure you have adequate values attached to your properties.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to take over for a minute, Shannon. Shannon's having a little bit of echo on her mic, so we're going to switch her mic so that she gets rid of that. But yeah, it's important, I think, in all of us that, we understand that especially tribal housing authorities and many of our tribes are, money is an asset, right? We have only so much to go around, and that, more cost in one area sometimes can be a loss in another, and that's just math. but we want to make sure that on our side that when something happens, we're there to provide the value of what you have. And in today's world, as we all know, especially those trying to build new things or in the process of building, have noticed that the market has changed significantly, and it changes quickly. And so, what's worth $1 today isn't worth $1 tomorrow because it costs too much to put in. So, again, all of this is like life. It's all a risk assessment. So, if you don't think you're going to have claims, and if you think you can get away with having, an undervalued facility, then that's a decision you make. But we have to make sure we understand that, we will insure to what you give us. We're not going to be able to interpret things. We may have an idea, but it's not our role to tell you what it is. It's our role to help you make the decision and then be adequate in your coverages. I think Shannon's back now. The other question that kind of comes up that I've seen a little bit in some of the conversations I've had with tribes across the country with our competitors, they talk about not having brokers to direct insure. What value brokers bring, and kind of why are they there, Shannon? And what value do they bring to a tribe? Tribal government, tribal business enterprise, whatever it is, as far as insurance brokerage?
Well, being new to insurance, as new as I am, I have the exact same question. So,
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Well, what is a broker, right? It pretty much helps organizations or tribal entities, of course, working on behalf of the client, for sure, offering advice and consultation from a coverage standpoint, and then being able to provide options. So we definitely work with brokers here at Ameren, and very much key parties or partners with us. So from a broker standpoint, great question, because we were like, well, what does my broker do for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we partner with our brokers, definitely service is one key aspect that the brokers will be providing for their clients, representing the tribe's needs and their interests, and pretty much taking a look at what the tribe has and providing some advice of this is the coverage you should definitely look at obtaining for your own protection. They're also a good resource to help interpret policy language as well. If not involved in the insurance day to day, it can seem a bit intimidating as well. So, leaning on the brokers to kind of help simplify the process, help guide you through some of the submission processes, applications, paperwork, all that good stuff. So they're pretty much a resource for that as well. And then, of course, customizing your policies and coverages. So by them working with the various tribal entities, taking a look at what you have, analyzing what you currently own, and then if you need to customize your coverage to make sure you're adequately covered for what you have, they're also great resources for that as well. So they are a key partner within this relationship. We do rely on our brokers working with our tribes, providing that service, helping guide them through the process for sure, and then obtaining the key relevant information that we need for a carrier to be able to provide an adequate quote. So definitely a resource that if you do have a broker, you might want to tap their expertise. And if you have a broker and there's just some, hey, I want to know more about this, you can contact your local broker or you can contact the carrier, but they are another resource on helping fill those coverage gaps that you may not be aware of.
Okay. So when a tribal organization gets the policy, what are some key things they should look at when reviewing the policy? What are 5 or 6 or whatever? I'm not trying to give you a number, but what are some of the things that are most important to kind of pay attention to, especially when comparing between, right? I mean, because sometimes you get things that are different and you really can't compare them because, whatever might be different. So it's apples and oranges instead of apples and apples.
Right. Great question. So a lot of the times we always ask for like a coverage comparison. Side by side is always helpful. This is what's covered. This is what's not. So, reviewing the policy document that you receive, confirming it provides adequate protection, accommodates your insurance needs. So definitely coverage is key, knowing what's covered and what's not. Limits is also another thing that we should pay attention to, limits on your property, limits for your liability limits, and then just making sure that you have adequate coverage in case something happens, and deductible options. What type of deductible options are available. Back to the limits thing, also make sure your limits are one-to-one. We're making sure that, especially on the general liability side, if I have $1 million general liability limit, that limit is just for me. So making sure that that limit is attached to your policy specific. And then deductibles, what are the deductible options available? What type of flexibility is there? Are there deductible requirements that a company places on policies? So just kind of exploring those options. Insurance is unique to where in some phases coverage is provided. Later on down the line, it could be excluded or withdrawn. So I think knowing some of those coverages of what for sure you're going to be covered for is key. Another thing I would consider is, of course, carrier experience. Tribes are unique as a whole. So being able to understand the uniqueness of all of our tribal communities, navigating the complexities of various areas, and I think even the legal structure as well, within our tribal area. So having a partner that understands tribal communities and economics, I think, is a benefit as well. And then premium transparency, being upfront about premiums, knowing what you are being charged for, what coverages are generating the premiums, and then, of course, being mindful of overinflated premiums. If you believe that, well, why is my premium so high? I want to see a breakdown of every coverage, and asking for those types of breakdowns can kind of help identify, well, my property is X number. Why is my liability higher than my property? And that kind of going into that little finer detail of your premium breakdown helps with identifying areas where you may really feel like I'm being overflated in this area. So premium transparency, I think, is key. And then, of course, the flexibility. Is your carrier flexible with, I need this coverage option for my greenhouse, or we just got involved in this new revenue generating operation that I need to get coverage for. So having that flexibility to be able to offer those coverage, I think, is key as well with the various carriers. And as you're looking for insurance options, just making sure that your coverages can be tailored to fit your needs.
Right. So being the naive one here, so that would that be considered like endorsements within a policy that could take a general policy and make it more specific to the needs of an individual or a nation or whatever it is? Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, got one right today. I'm batting 1,000 right now. Well, cool. I guess for me too, I always, when we do these, we talk a lot about things that are out there. I always want to ask Shannon, kind of as we're kind of wrapping up time here, we got about 10 minutes, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions or something that you think is out there that's wrong about insurance, or is, that's just not a complete, people don't have all the information they need to. I'm always just curious if there's something that pops in your head right away. And if you have to think for a second, that's fine. But I'm always trying to figure out if there's one thing we wanted people to walk away from this, this 30, 40-minute conversation, what would it be?
Very loaded question there, Felix.
It is mine.
Well, one could be, if if you get an insurance policy and it's bound for the year, one misconception is that's what my policy is, coverage is forever, right? So I've kind of established it, I've said it, and then I'm just going to run with it. Yeah, if we've got updates, don't really need to inform my carrier if I've had updates to my policy. Having our data as accurate as possible and current is highly encouraged. That way we can make sure that we cover you in the event something happens. I think another misconception that I can think of is I have a lot of maintenance issues going on, and I'm going to use my insurance to repair these maintenance items. When insurance is, it's more of your sudden and accidental occurrences. So fire, weather related, busted pipes, those are sudden and accidental occurrences. So I think one of the misconceptions from there would be that insurance will cover everything. My insurance will cover everything that I have. Let's just file claims. When there's specific policy language that does identify what's covered and what's not, which, kind of goes back to that earlier question about what should we be looking for in an insurance product. And then those are the two that I can think of right off the bat.
Yeah.
But
there's always questions.
I think the big one is everything gets paid for.
Yeah. So James had a question. Does this also include, and so I got to make sure, so does the coverage is what he's talking about, or the endorsements, does that also include in homeowners such as wind?
The wind and hail deductible on homeowners?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, our homeowners program does have 2 deductibles that get applied to those policies. One deductible is going to be your standard policy deductible, which we have a variety of options that we can offer on a policy. And then the second deductible that gets applied is more specific to wind or hail claims. So when we talk about the wind or hail deductible, that is a separate deductible as opposed to your standard policy deductible. So as an example, if you have a homeowner's policy and you have a $1,000 policy deductible on the coverage, that is your deductible for all claims other than wind and hail. The wind and hail deductible is separate. So anytime you have a tornado, a windstorm, a hailstorm, some sort of hurricane, some sort of wind or hail event, that is a separate deductible from the $1,000 policy deductible that was selected. So, and that is standard on our homeowners program. We see that standard throughout the insurance industry on personal lines policies, whether you're with Allstate, State Farm. Some areas do incorporate a wind or hail deductible, and the percentages vary. And then we do have various wind or hail deductible options available as well, other than what we implement on all of our policies. I hope that answers your question, James.
Yeah, and so that it creates more uniqueness per policy based on need, right? Instead of just having one generic thing that you spit out and it is what it is. We have the ability to kind of look at what we have and try and tailor it to the best we can to your specific needs. So no, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think my part of this is I always say that insurance can be, especially if you don't do it every day, a lot of stuff, right? I mean, I know I've seen 800 pages, and not anybody's going to sit and read 800 pages. Maybe there is, but not me. And so what I always say is, if you have questions about Ameren, everybody out there, ask Ameren or ask a broker. And if you don't know who the brokers that are in our family of coverages, please reach out to us and let us know. I think one of the things that I've struggled with in the time is the misinformation that comes from people who don't have any idea of what Ameren is. They're just making assumptions, and they're doing things on their own without really knowing. So if there's ever a question, I mean, Ameren's always been an open book. I mean, our CEO all the way down to myself. We're always there to try and provide the best information and the correct information. And the only way you're going to get that about Ameren is to ask somebody from Ameren. Because I think that's one of the big things for me. And I know I don't see any more questions. If anybody has any questions for us, please shoot them to us. We've got your contact information through this. And we'd love to try and, talk to you about it and answer any questions you have, so that we all get a little smarter, about this whole insurance process. But anything in closing that you can think of, Shannon, you wanted to share? Anything else?
No, I think like Felix mentioned, reach out to us. We like chatting. We can set up calls, open discussions. We're pretty open and flexible. And we definitely have a team here at Ameren that wants to do the best for the tribes. So service is key for us. Definitely have a hardworking team. They just want to do their best and providing that adequate service on behalf of our insured. So don't hesitate to reach out, even if you just want to inquire about the company. Reach out to us. We're more than happy to have these open conversations. And if this generates more questions, even better. Reach out and we'll see what sort of solutions we can provide.
Yeah, I concur with that. I think the other thing to think about too is, with our organization, I think last time I heard, Shannon, I think I'm still right, we're over 60% tribal employees on
Yes.
staff. And so, the reality is that, our knowledge of our community comes from the people that work at Ameren. Some of us were raised in different parts of the United States, on reservations. So we understand the challenges that we all have as nations. And so, that's a value in itself, because we have people spread all over the United States and have that knowledge, have a working relationship with people. And so, even if you just want to kind of pick our brains about stuff, we're more than willing. I know I support, I'm not going to speak for Shannon's office because I know they're busy as heck. But for ACI, if there's anything we can ever do, any questions you have, please reach out and let us know. And if we don't know, we'll find somebody who'll know. And we appreciate the time to talk with y'all. I hope in the future these keep growing, and maybe this is something that Shannon and I pick one part of this and we just have a conversation about one specific aspect and kind of this blanket statement that blanket discussion we had today. But I appreciate everybody's time. Shannon, thank you for everything, all the information. It's a good start. Monica, I know you're behind the scenes. Thank you for everything you do. And everybody at Ameren, I appreciate everything that you do on behalf of Indian Country. And we look forward to continuing and growing, the resources and the protection that we provide to our nations across this United States. Thank you. Have a great day. Have an even better weekend. Hopefully everybody has something planned, fun this weekend. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay.